Live from the French Quarter, this is Eyewitness News at 5.
A winter wonderland, that's what Saints fans are about to enter as they head to the next round of the playoffs. The snow is falling and it's more than 60 degrees colder than New Orleans.
Those are the conditions Saints fans will see as they start making the 1,200-mile journey up north to Minneapolis, as our crews have done. We have live team coverage with Andrew Doe covering the sports angle and what the Saints will face on the field. But first, Natalie Shepard begins our coverage with a closer look at the fan experience in Minneapolis. Natalie?
Well, Ton, Karen, come to Minneapolis in January, they said. It'll be fun, they said. I will tell you, it is freezing cold, but we are having a good time. It did snow quite a bit today, so that was fun to see. But, you know, they have a lot of things here in Minnesota that we do not have in Louisiana, including outdoor winter activities. So last night, we checked out a castle made entirely of ice. Check it out. The sign says it all, only in Minnesota. The families line up to make their way through a castle made entirely of ice.
In the end, we have 500,000 icicles that make up ice castles.
Ice Castles is in Stillwater, just outside Minneapolis. Everyone makes their way inside this winter wonderland to see what it's all about, taking it slow, slipping and sliding along the way. Somebody better look for Elsa. There's a lot to see. Frozen fountains, walls of ice 10 feet thick and up to 30 feet high, all lit up. There's even a slide made of ice. Mother Nature plays her part, and the castle grows all winter long.
So it all starts with a single icicle that's hand placed over and over everywhere you see a wall here, and then they spray freezing cold water over it, and those icicles grow bigger.
And it will have plenty of time to grow this weekend as temps dip below zero. But be like a local. Don't let it go, let it snow. Bundle up and enjoy.
It's a once-in-a-lifetime experience, especially from your area, to come and see something like this.
All right, well, if you are heading up this way, I would recommend bringing all of the warm clothes you have. I have stopped looking at the temperature because it is getting low, and last time I checked, it was about 7 degrees where we are. But I will say, some things that we have in Louisiana, they do not have here in Minneapolis, and that includes king cake. We did bring some up here, and we're going to talk to some folks who got a chance to try that coming up in just a little bit. But for now, Karen and Todd, I'm going to send it back to you.
All right, I hope you're enjoying some hot chocolate with that king cake up there. Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Ton Trung. We had some warm weather here in New Orleans today, but that's not the case in Minneapolis, where the Saints will take on the Vikings this weekend. Natalie Shepard is on a frigid assignment. She joins us live from Minnesota. And good evening, Natalie, with a lot of burrs behind it.
Yes, it is very, very cold, but we are here outside the Mall of America, which is one of the most well-known spots here in Minneapolis. But today, we went looking for a more iconic duo, burgers and beer. They go well with football, and I think we found some of the best in the city.
Go to Matt's Bar and Grill. They have a Juicy Lucy, which is a burger with cheese baked inside of it.
Katie Steiner started telling us about the Juicy Lucy on Monday, and this was my face then.
It's almost dinner time. I'm like, that burger looks amazing.
So when we cook them, the cheese becomes molten hot inside.
So it only makes sense that one of my first stops in Minneapolis would be Matt's Bar and Grill, the home of the Juicy Lucy since 1955.
And one of the regulars, after Matt had taken over the restaurant, asked him to try something different and to try and put cheese in the middle of the burgers. And so they did that, talked about it, crimped it together, made it, and when he bit into it, the cheese came oozing out. And the customer said, now that's a Juicy Lucy.
Paul Reese has been cooking them up for 14 years in the tiny kitchen next to the bar.
It's got a hometown feel to it. And, you know, we put out a good product and have a good staff, and people love coming in.
And from firsthand experience, it's worth it.
Believe the hype. It's good.
So we're mixing water with milled malted barley.
And what goes better with a burger and a Saints playoff game than beer? Minneapolis has a vibrant craft brew scene, and Surly's Brewing has been at the forefront of that.
But we wanted to build a place that was special and really about celebrating Minneapolis, celebrating the beer and the culture here in Minnesota.
Head brewer Ben Smith encourages any fans to stop in for a sip.
All right, cheers. Thanks for coming. Skol Vikings.
Oh, who dat? He snuck in a little nod to the Vikings, but with the playoff game here Sunday and the Super Bowl coming up soon, he's excited to welcome new fans to Minneapolis and Surly.
Hopefully the Vikings make it. If not, it's going to be fun no matter what. I'm not even sure how many hundreds of thousands or even millions of people are going to come to town.
All right, those are both great places to go inside to get out of this cold weather if you are here in town. Surly's Brewing does do tours. It's just a really cool facility, so good places to check out. And of course, we will be having more live coverage from Minneapolis later in the show. I will be here, and Andrew Doak is also with us tonight, so we will hear from him. Of course, don't forget, tomorrow night we have our Eye on Saints special. That will be at 6:30 tomorrow night on WWL, as well as on WUPL. But for now, Carl, it is so cold here. I am going to toss it back to you in the studio, and New Orleans is in for a cool down too.
We are, but not as cold as what you're seeing right there, Natalie. And usually, you know, the studio is pretty cold as well, but nothing like what you have right there. As we show you what's going on.
Good evening, I'm Tan Trung.
And I'm Natalie Shepard in chilly Minneapolis, where the Saints are getting ready to take on the Vikings this Sunday. Tan, it's getting exciting.
It is getting exciting. It's getting cold here, actually, Natalie, but looking at your live shot right now, it's probably much colder there, and I'm not jealous.
It is much colder here, and because it is such a winter wonderland, I wanted to give people in Louisiana a little taste of some of the things here in Minnesota than what we have. And so today we had a chance to sit down with a former Olympian and take a look at curling.
Up, you don't gotta be on it.
You've probably seen curling on TV during the Olympics, but how much do you really know about the sport?
Curling's a sport that's played on ice, and it has teams of 4.
Okay, that's pretty basic, but here's the gist. Players are trying to get their rock closer to the center and knock their opponents out while they're at it.
I would say it's like bowling and bocce.
There's the lead who throws and the guys who sweep it down the ice.
Well, I think the draw is that it's very different. It's a very unique sport. And once people try it for the first time, they realize they got it all wrong.
Of course, it has interesting equipment too. All right, I got it. But it is quite heavy.
42 pounds of granite.
And it's taking off around Minnesota. This weekend, the Chaska Curling Center is taking part in the Big Spiel.
The Big Spiel is a big deal.
Hard line all the way, boys!
While we're thinking about football, 96 teams are playing in this 4-day tournament.
Traditionally, curling, you got involved with curling because someone in your family played.
And that's true for Jeff Isaacson. He manages Chaska Curling, but he got his start as a teenager because his parents played. His curling career took him to 2 Olympic Games and to the White House to meet President Barack Obama. He was too humble to mention it, and his colleague, Jason Sescalba, says that's part of the sport too.
You get to meet a whole array of different people. There is some beverages involved, of course, just like you would with bowling.
Just a bunch of curlers raising a glass, sweeping a broom, and having a great time.
And that was Natalie Shepard. She'll be joining us in Minneapolis a little later in the show.
And I'm Natalie Shepard back out here in chilly Minneapolis, where it feels like the temperature just keeps going down. And sometimes these cold temperatures can have an effect on our camera equipment. So after my curling story, I was going to say that Olympian Jeff Isaacson that you heard from there, he's one of the few Vikings I talked to this week. Is kind of expressing some concern and some doubt about his team on Sunday. So I'm taking that as a good sign. Carl, I am going to toss it back to you in the studio. Am I right? Getting colder here?
It is getting colder as the sun goes down. Temperatures do drop, and right now, -2 degrees for Natalie Shepard standing out there.
All right, Carl, I think everyone can be glad that the Vikings play in a dome. Always a nice 70 degrees inside. Of course, the Saints taking on the Vikings coming up this Sunday. Ricardo LeCompte is here now with a look at what's ahead in sports.
That's right, Natalie. Sean Payton actually talked.
Who dat? All right. Those fans have a warm spot to warm up to with some familiar food like jambalaya and po' boys. A chef from Houma who now lives in the Twin Cities. Well, he's rooting for the Saints tomorrow, but as Natalie Shepard tells us, his wife is a Vikings fan.
You're not going to find many beignets in Minnesota, but we did find one place serving up a taste of New Orleans right outside Minneapolis.
stone ground grits.
Chef Tim Glover is a rarity in Minnesota. He's a transplant from Houma, cooking Creole food in the Twin Cities.
This is a recipe, a family recipe that has both crawfish and shrimp etouffee.
You'll find him in the kitchen at his restaurant, Bistro La Rue.
And I took all the traditional dishes like jambalaya, etouffee, and started feeding them to the Minnesotans.
First, out of a food truck, he called Cajun to go.
So I took our family camper, believe it or not, and what I did was I converted it into a food truck.
The restaurant has all the tastes of home.
The Andy Gator Purple Haze, and you can combine these two and make a Barney.
From Abita beer to Zapp's chips, community coffee, and even Leidenheimer bread. It's the details that make the difference. But there's one detail that's making this weekend a little stressful.
Tim and I understand each other's loyalties. We understand that he grew up in Louisiana. Of course, he's cheering for the Saints. And Minnesota, of course, is in my heart.
You see, Tim is a Saints fan, of course. His wife, Lori, roots for the Vikings.
We're not going to battle, but Vikings will win.
They remember 2009, and they don't soon let you forget being a Saints fan.
But they'll always agree on the food.
We've learned to put up with each other's team.
Win or lose, Bistro La Rue will still keep celebrating New Orleans. They already have a huge Mardi Gras party set for February 13th. In Circle Pines, Minnesota, I'm Natalie Shepard, Eyewitness News.
How cute is this?